up, my lovely females? This is your boy Costa, your host for the evening. Behind me is Thomas Cub's house. Today is Thomas Cub's birthday, and this is Project X. Yo.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Out of My Mind, the podcast to declare the mind and be good for the soul. I'm your host, like every evening, Kathy, and today I have with me a special guest, Miss Sheri Bickford. Miss Sheri, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Sheri Bickford, and I have the honor to be someone who knows Kathy and works with her, and I'm excited to be here today. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, absolutely. Miss Sheri, what do you do for a living? Please tell
Sure.
the audience who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So I work as a licensed mental health counselor, but I'm also a strategic intervention coach.
Okay.
Really, that's just a fancy word to say someone who's in the life coaching realm as well.
Okay.
So I work with a lot of women and children and families to try to help them with some skills that they might need because they're having some challenges in life, and how to regulate emotions better, how to be able to just feel better about themselves and the things that they want to do in life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And usually, do you mostly see children? Do you see adults? Or do you kind of like to mix it up?
I do like to mix it up. I started in education over 20 years ago. So I've always worked with kids, and I really found that okay, there's a missing piece here. And part of it is the parent side, or it's the teacher side, but the adult side too.
Yeah.
Obviously that impacts kids. So I have a pretty even split with kids compared to adults. So I would say my niche is within the kids realm, but I always find that the kids lead to the adults.
I think we see
it's
that
kind
all
of a
the
neat
time.
package deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and then back to your educational side of things.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do back in the education system?
So what's interesting, when I first was in college, I was an elementary education major.
Okay.
And I lived in Massachusetts. And at the time, they changed a whole bunch of rules. And it was going to take an extra year for me to get out of school. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to do that. That was where I was at that point in my life. And I was like, oh, I love psychology. And you had to take a lot of psych classes for education anyway. Yeah. And I totally switched my major. So I ended up getting a bachelor's in psychology.
Okay.
And then I became a teacher. And so I worked kindergarten through grade 6, over the years. And within that journey, got a master's in education. And so I did that. And then I found within that, I was like, I like the teaching part, but do I like teaching English and math and all that stuff? Or do I like the kids? Do I like the people? Do I like the human side of it?
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, I like the human side of it. So I actually worked with kiddos and families that had English as a second language for a while, because I was able to get out of the big classroom and then get into smaller groups and get more who are you as a person, and kind of do my thing, the psych stuff, but support people and really help them. Anyways, that was my journey. And then in 2014, moved to Florida. And at that time, I had been in education to a point where I said, I don't want to go back in the classroom.
Okay.
I don't mind working with small groups, but I want something a little different. And I was very fortunate to get a job as a 504 coordinator. So my job was to be able to help create these 504 accommodation plans for kids that had anxiety, ADHD, if they were on the spectrum, if they had even health issues.
Yeah, I was one of those kids.
You were.
Yes.
Oh, neat. Which was I'm an advocate.
Yeah.
So now I'm not in the classroom having to teach the curriculum. I'm now here in my space where I have to work with the teachers, the administration. I have to welcome the parents in, school psychologists. We create a plan, and I get to sit with this team, but be the biggest advocate for everybody. So I love that that's your experience.
Yeah, I love that job. I love when teachers used to advocate for kids. That's why I was when I first met you, Sheri, I was like, oh my God, I would have loved Miss Sheri as a teacher when I was going to school. Oh my God. Because when I first met you, it was just you had that, you vouch for kids, and me being the age that I am. Of course, I'm 21, so when I first got hired here, I was very young, and just seeing how you worked with children and see that you really vouched and told parents listen to your kid.
Listen to your kid.
That's what you first
validate
told me.
your kids. Your world will change.
I know. When you told me that, I was just and you're mostly it's the parents don't know what they're doing, and that's totally fine. Like, you always told me it's okay.
It's okay.
Like, it doesn't. You guys don't always have to have it figured out with stuff.
No.
And I love that you always like make sure people have that kind of safety net behind them too. That like you make it like seem like, okay, like you did something, you messed up, but it's okay because there's something that can have a solution towards your problem.
Absolutely. I feel that the purpose of mistakes is to learn from them and then grow and get better.
Yeah.
So I think a huge challenge is we all kind of come into our lives wherever we are, however young or old. Like, you and I have an age difference between us, right?
Yeah.
Yet we're this kindred spirit in a lot of ways too. I think it's the Pisces thing.
Yeah.
But there's conditioning,
Yeah.
like life situations that happen. Now, you and I come from very different life situations in our history, but we have so many things that are so similar.
Yeah.
And I think that for parents, they come to the table with their kids and they're like, there's no manual for this. I'm going to do the best that I can. And what do I know? Well, I know what I saw modeled from my parents or what someone else told me I need to do. And so that's what I'm going to do. And often it's not the best for everybody.
Yeah.
But how do you expect somebody to do something that they don't know? So I get the pleasure of being able to help guide parents to see a different perspective.
Yeah, and I feel like I learned a lot from you, just parent-wise, like just knowing, like me being as young as I am, like not understanding, like parents don't have a book manuals to everything. Like they don't know how, they don't like, when they have a kid, it doesn't come with a manual and you can't like, okay, this is what every age is supposed to be like and this is what's supposed to happen. So like doing what I do and then having the experience of working with you and like seeing how you work with parents, and like I feel like it helps me kind of delegate on the phone calls when I am on the phone with parents, because I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, I get where you're coming from as a parent. Like, you're concerned about your child. You're not trying to be mean towards me. It's nothing personal with us of why you're getting so aggressive with me. It's just the fact of, like, you're worried and concerned about your child and you're freaking out because you don't know what to do, basically.
Absolutely.
That's literally all. And I see it all the time when you have parents in, and when you have a special certain case, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I see where Sheri's trying to guide it through with the parents and the child. It's kind of like a little dance you're trying to do.
It is a little dance. And I think it's so great what you just said, because what you're saying is that you're not looking at the phone call as like super like black and white or all or nothing. You're looking at it like, you know, on the one hand, like, I don't really like the tone that person has, or they're a little bit like a little bit much, and this feels, you know, either stressful or whatever that is. But it sounds like what you just said is like you can step back and see the whole picture and understand, like, okay, so they're acting this way, which maybe isn't okay, but let me see what their intention is. Their intention is, I want the best for my kid, and I'm scared or I'm uncertain. I don't know what the thing is. And you're right now my lifeline. Kathy's my lifeline, because I called her and I'm thinking this is going to help me.
And I noticed like a lot of people on the phone, whenever they do call, they'd be like, you're like the 5th person I called. Hopefully, like they give you that like, hopefully you can help me, or hopefully. So I feel like it's like a lot of pressure.
Ooh, almost like they're, and I don't want to say desperate in a bad way, but like desperate, like I don't want to lose my hope.
Yeah,
and
then I can't help my child.
So important to me. So I think that's amazing though that you have that perspective when you answer the phone, because it is true. Because other places might be like, I'm not dealing with that, you know, and be like, I'm so sorry, we're not the right fit. But it's a puzzle. There's so much that goes into it. Parents want the best for their kids. Sometimes they don't have all the tools that they need, and it's not their fault.
Yeah.
But then oftentimes they'll blame the kids, like, my kid is this, my kid is that. And so for me, I'm like, problem number one. In my head, I don't say this out loud. Problem number one, that attitude right there.
Gots to go.
Your child feels that.
Don't you feel
two-sided?
Okay, so when it comes to parents and children, the child is usually seeing the parents' reaction towards stuff, and they're grasping that knowledge of like their parents' reaction towards things. Does that affect the children and parent relationship once they grow older? If they're seeing their parents react to a certain way about a certain thing, does it like affect the child in like a negative way, or like does the child is like always on high alert about things? Like I feel like I've kind of noticed that with a lot of kids that we see. Like they'll tell you something about their parent, and you're like, oh, okay, I see why they react the way that they do, because their parent is constantly doing that behavior. So like I feel like the kid is kind of like grasping the knowledge. Do you understand what I'm asking?
I do. It's a really good question, and the answer is yes. Like it has a significant impact, because if you think about, let's think about, I don't know, like either a baby or like up to say like a toddler, like a 3-year-old. So it's a little bit of a scary fact, but most of our conditioning, which is typically like a set of rules that we've learned, these are the rules, my rules dictate my actions, my beliefs in this world. That typically happens by the age of 3. Now, we constantly learn more and we tweak it. So kids at that age, birth to 3, are they able to consciously sit and say, well, I think I'm going to do that because that seems like a good idea? No, they're watching the people around them. They're taking it in. They don't always have the words to be able to express like what's going on. Yeah. So instead, their little brains are like, I'm taking all this input in. Their parents are the role models. So it's like a computer. Okay. The parents are giving them the information, the data to put in the brain. That's the software. And then a little one as young as 3 is now like, okay, I've got the basics for how the world works. And it came directly from the people they spend the most time with, which normally is the parents. Okay. So the parents have so much power and so much impact on the kids by the role modeling. So if they're being really upset, let's say with their kids, or impulsive with how they respond to something, their kids are probably going to pick up on that.
And for teenagers, do you feel like, you know, because we talked about little kids and then now like teenagers, like let's say like a teen all the way up to my age, like a young adult. So like, do you feel like whenever we get out of that stage of going through like all of our, you know, kiddish stage and doing all that stuff and having that parent relationship, do you feel like it's harder for parents to kind of like delegate us as teenagers more than children, or more as children than teenagers?
Yeah, great question. I mean, teenagers, as we know, is a whole nother situation. Yeah. I think the difference there is that parents know that their teenagers have more like cognitive ability to be able to think and to maybe make decisions and so on and so forth. And a lot of times parents don't know how to navigate that. Not that they do with the little ones easier, but in a way, there's a different level of familiarity, I think, with how parents can relate to younger kids. So I think with teenagers, I think that's really difficult for parents because they don't quite know that realm the same way they think they know the realm of kids that are younger.
Because I definitely notice on the phone, like when I ask parents, like, okay, so like what's bringing you in, or like what are you coming for services for, they'll be like, well, my child was never like this as a kid. Like as a child, they were never like this. So whenever now they're teenagers, like now I don't know where all this is coming from. Like I hear a lot of those phrases on the phone, so it got me like wondering, like, okay, if your child wasn't like this, like what shifted in like for your child to be this extreme, or this situation just exploded. So I always think it's like a certain situation that like once they hit a certain age, like something happens and like their brain kind of switches, like a Rubik's Cube kind of deal. That's kind of how I think about
that's an interesting analogy. I think, there's so many things happening. I mean, the brain continues to grow and develop. Then you've got hormones as a teenager. Here's the other thing that we don't know, right? Like if a parent says something like, they were never like this as a child. Well, how do we know what the child was processing? And if the child were, say, like, oh, the message that I believe that this world is telling me is that I'm supposed to, be a people pleaser, and I'm just supposed to do all the things I'm supposed to smile about, but that child may never have truly been okay with that. And they may have felt like this isn't part of, I don't think that this is fair all the time. So therefore, I'm feeling maybe like I'm not important enough. But as a kid, might not have the words or understanding to describe it. But then as a teenager, that feeling has maybe stacked and grown to where then that teenager might be at a point with the hormones added into there where they're just like, hey, I'm at this threshold point where I'm not really okay with that anymore. And they're going to start to find ways to get the attention or the validation that they're looking for, which is really just to say, please notice me. I just need to know I'm loved and that I'm safe. And so a teenager's gonna, maybe get to a point where they're like, the ways I used to deal with things when I was a kid doesn't work for me now.
Yeah, that's definitely how
I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely how I felt. Like even starting with this job, like I always felt like I don't think about like even when I was like 16 or 17, like going through all my stages, like I don't think the same way as I used to think about certain situations. Like my solutions are very different from what I used to be able to do. Like if I got into an argument with somebody, or I got broken up with, or any situation like that, like I feel like I've dealt with it, and you kind of grow, and you kind of even when people be like, oh, you're too young, like you're too young, you have so many, like, Sheri, I hate when people say
But
that
what
to
did
me.
you, and I love that example because what were you really looking for?
What do you mean?
When you would say that,
this to me?
no, I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot. No,
Yeah.
and the reason I'm asking you this question, honestly, is not to put you on the spot at
Yeah.
all, but because your question about the teenagers is so interesting to me. And what you just said, oh, I see this like bridge, I see this tangent to that. So like, what did you really want somebody to say when you would take the time, if let's say you were broken up with, to talk to them about it? What were you looking for? Were you looking for them to tell you, oh, you're young, you can, you've got time?
When people tell me that, because I feel like it doesn't. I feel like the age doesn't matter for your mental capacity to actually do things.
Right.
Like I feel like when you tell me this all the time, like I have like an older, mature, like even you didn't even think I was the age I was when I first got hired here.
No.
So like even when I do express myself, or I noticed that when I was 16, 17, like even though I'm just 21, like I just feel like I express myself in such a different manner now that I don't take stuff to like, oh, just because you're young, like you have so many more years to experience heartbreaks. Like people always tell me that after a breakup, oh, you have so many, you're gonna fall in love, you're gonna fall in and out of love, like you're gonna, but I feel like your brain develops and protects you, like you told me, like it protects you towards certain things. So like when something happens to me, I kind of put it in a filing cabinet and kind of like shut it, and like I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to deal with a scenario like that again, kind of what I tell myself. Like I know that I'm not going to put myself in a position to be played like that again, basically. So I feel like that's my like coping mechanism for everything like I've kind of been throughout life growing up, is that like my brain automatically protects me and it puts it away, and it's just like, all right, I'm not going to deal with that anymore, and I'm going to teach myself not to put myself in a position like that again. Kind of is how I... So
the good news is that what you just described is the survival brain, which is how... Is
that that like chart that we have back there? The one with the brain and the... No, that's different. That's the nerve system. Right?
Oh, I think that one's a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah, so like we're all... We forget this, or we just don't know it, but like we're built with a brain that is intended to help us survive. Meaning, here's a dinosaur chasing me. My brain is supposed to help me survive that. Problem solved, figure it out, right? But we don't want to just survive, because that's too black and white. We want the emotional side, so we want to thrive. At least that's what I say. Like, let's not just survive, let's thrive. And our brain does automatically go to just survival. So it makes total sense to me that you do what you do. It's what everybody does. Yeah. The problem with it is that it's still there because it hasn't been dealt with. Yeah. And you find different ways, to deal with it. But again, it brings me back to like, what could have made that situation better for you? So your survival brain says, hey, this is how I deal with things. And so I'm going to put it in a box, and that's that. I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to be in control. I'm going to be ready for the next time. Hell to the no that this is happening again. Don't stop doing that, but don't let it stop just there. So what I mean by that is, what is it that you would have wanted in that situation when you're talking to other people about it? Instead of them telling you, like, you're young, you'll find somebody else. Like, what did you truly, truly, truly want from someone else? If you had like a magic wand and you were like, I'm gonna like use my magic wand and I'm gonna talk to that person, I'm gonna tell them about my breakup, and that this is what I would want them to do.
I would want them to like understand where I'm coming from. Like,
want to be
like
validated. Teenagers want to be validated. Little kids want to be validated. Adults that are 65. I've got clients that range from 5 years old, literally up to 80 years old. Yeah. It's all the same umbrella. It's just different. The developmental space that person's in, which is kind of like what you're talking about. Developmentally, you see the growth in you, and you see how it's different at 21 than it was like at 16 or 17. But if you look back, no matter how old you were, I can almost guarantee you probably gonna be like, damn, when I was 7 and this thing happened, and
I just want to be validated the entire time. I just want like a person not to like kind of like shove me to this, like tell me what it's already programmed in your head to tell somebody when they are going through something. Like, when somebody's crying, they'd be like, it's okay, you'll figure it out, or you're fine, like you're okay, like it's gonna get better, like don't even worry about it. Like I feel like people always say that stuff and they expect you to be like, you said that? everything's gonna get
We're
better.
good.
Yeah, we're good.
You're so right. But see, that's the
fine.
difference between the survival brain. Like, in people, I think you know this too, they have the best of intentions when they say things like that. They're like, oh, she has a problem, I have to try to come up with a solution.
Yeah.
Okay. But most of the time, people aren't looking for the solution. They're looking to be validated.
Yeah.
So it's annoying.
It's hell.
Yeah.
When somebody just tells you, oh, it's okay, like, you're fine. Like, and I'm like, no, like, I really want, and I feel like it's very hard for people to even have the human decency of even, I don't know, like, if you have this in your life as friends or anything like that, but, like, I feel like it's hard for people to grasp as friendships to, like, validate each other's feelings as friends, too, because I feel like as friendships occur, like, people be like, well, I don't like because you did this, or you hung out with this person, or you did that, and it's just like, okay, I understand, I'm validating your feelings, but you have to understand, it can't be like a one-way street towards
yes,
validating
thank you.
validating, like, I'm understanding, but you have to understand why I did what I did, and what I did on whatever grounds it was. Like, I feel like there's a lot of relationships that are always one-sided of validating somebody's feelings, regardless of what it is. So
Wow.
I feel like validation is like a huge pinpoint for a lot of things.
And in your point to a two-way street, which is what it needs to be, that's what the relationship is, right? Like, your friends need to realize they don't have to like the decision that you made to go hang out with so-and-so, but they do have to validate and understand that that is your right as a human being, and that doesn't mean that you don't still love and care about them and value them. It just means that you're a whole person.
Yeah.
And that no one gets to control, like, who you are. And so that's kind of a weakness or an insecurity on their part.
Okay. And I noticed it's like a reflection of a lot of, like, people end up doing stuff, and I guess sometimes when people do stuff, for me, I feel like I blame myself for a lot of things, like blaming what your one-sided self, like, was it me? Did I do something wrong? What did I not obtain to their, like, you know, like, trying to, like,
did I not meet their expectations
kind of deal, and like, oh, what was it that I could change to make it better, or something like that. But then when I
like, all on you,
all on me,
Yeah.
like, I don't
Well, it's
put it
heavy.
on that other person, like,
Okay.
in any situation. But I feel like that's
Wow.
like a protective thing for me to not hurt their feelings, that I blame it all on me, to not make it seem like they're a bad person, basically, kind of is what I put in my head. And I feel like that's not okay.
It's just not fair, because it's not true. It's not balanced. So, and I love to think about balance, right? So in your situation that you just talked about, here's you taking all the responsibility, and here's the other person who you've decided they have nothing to do with it. It's you, it's you, it's you.
Yeah.
So I'm always, like, you know, reminding myself, and I do this with clients a lot too, like, it's about looking for the balance. So for you to be aware that that's a pattern that you have, because you're always, I guarantee you can tell me any situation you want, and I will be able to help you find the pattern in it. And that's such amazing information, because the pattern can be changed once you can identify it. But so your pattern is, like, your brain is on that hamster wheel, that when this happens and this friend is upset with you, you go into that space of, like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong, and you start looking at it as only you.
Yeah.
So the cool part about it is that you're an amazing person, and you're like, I want to be accountable for myself. I applaud that and honor you for that.
I feel like I'm too self-aware.
You just need to balance it out and be like, okay, now that I've looked at me and the things that I want to reflect on myself and say, oh my gosh, did I do something? Let me self-reflect, go back, let me look and see, okay, maybe when I said this, it bothered them. I could certainly address it with that person, because you can't make assumptions. You can only gain information when you self-reflect and then go bring it back to that person. But then you got to be like, but what is it about that person that might be making them feel that way?
Okay.
Are they a little bit of a more needy person? Do you feel that there's some insecurities with that person? Are they extra controlling? Not to use those as critical, judgmental questions, but to just level the playing field a little bit and create some balance where it's not just you that it happened. Like, what is it about them that maybe contributed to them saying what they said to you? So that you then come to a place where you're like, oh yeah, I could have done and said these things, and I want to address it, but it also could be in part because of some things on their side. And now that I've thought about it, I don't feel all that weight on me. It's not one-sided anymore. Now it's two. Okay. Does that make sense, or is that, like, super complicated?
No, because, you know, I love when you, like, like
I just
wordy.
rattled.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
rattled because my brain's like,
I know, but I think
everybody all the things. Sorry.
and I think that's what like me and you always like saw eye to eye with, is that whenever we talk, we like just ramble. Like we like come up with all these like things of like the other day whenever we're like, oh, that was a talk. Like whenever we're the
I know.
oh, that was really
We
good.
finish. You're like, good talk.
Good talk, yeah. And I just feel like even though like I always felt like I've kind of connected with people older than me, it's just because I feel like I've always like had that like understanding of like being an adult is like on a different playing field. It's always been like I've seen my mom, I've seen like other people that I've worked with. I've never worked with somebody my age. Let me just put it that way. Like ever since I was 15, I've worked with older people all the time. So like not working with somebody my age, I think I've never experienced that like, I don't know, like when I go to work, like I'm so like you see me when I'm like I'm super serious about my job. I like make sure everything's done. I'm like really hard on myself, and I feel like me connecting with you when I first met you, I was like, wow, okay, Sheri's like I don't know, like it's like
Sheri's a lot.
I was like, no, not like you're a lot. It was just like when I met you, I just felt like you had like this like connecting like feeling, like you like validating me.
Oh, okay.
Like
Aww.
you understood like she's been through a lot. There's more under there than like a regular like girl that's just trying to go to work every day and do like there's like more to me. And then when I started sitting down with you more and I started explaining everything and like trying to get to know each other, and I was like, wow, like you said, we come from totally different backgrounds. Totally different backgrounds. And then when I noticed that like even your situations that you go through, like helping your father and like keeping up with a marriage and having a child and doing all this stuff, like I always be like, damn, Sheri, like how do you do it? Like I really like want to know like how are you able to like come to work every day, do what you do, go home, take care of your dad, then go, you know, be in a relationship, be in a marriage, and check on your child, and like how are you able to like juggle all that stuff?
Well, I think I do it in a similar way to you, actually, because you were just talking about how you'll sometimes take something and then you'll kind of put it in a box. So my thought process is, I like to say, to compartmentalize.
Okay.
And so what I mean by that is like, oh, back in the day, you used to go to the library and they had the card catalog and you had to pull out all the little card, you know, and they were kind of narrow, but they were long.
They were long
too, right?
Yeah.
I literally visualize that sometimes for different things in my life. And I'll be like, okay, so here's your day today. Here's what you have to do. So it's like showing up and being super present for the thing that you're focused on in that moment. So if I'm here and it's clients, all the other drawers of that card catalog are closed.
Okay.
And what's in each of those drawers is all the other stuff that I have to do and juggle. But they're closed. Because right now I want to show up, I want to be present.
Okay.
So I make a conscious decision. It's not always easy. And I say this a lot. I love this phrase. Like, the solution is simple, but maybe not easy. Meaning, I can give you the recipe. It's a simple recipe. Here are your 3 ingredients, ready, go. But when it comes to changing patterns in certain beliefs and thoughts that we have, it's not always easy to just take that recipe of those 3 things, believe in it, do it, and make it happen. Does that make sense? Yeah. So for me, when it comes to juggling, is just trying to make a conscious decision to be like, I've got to be present. Like, this is my client. And when I'm in that space, that's the only drawer that's open. And then, like, let's say I'm done with a set of morning sessions, and then I do most days have to leave to go take care of my dad, who's a paraplegic. And it's like I close the client drawer, I close the work drawer for a few hours, and then I open up the dad drawer. But that's the only thing I'm present with, to the best of my ability. Don't get me wrong, my brain is always very busy, and it's always like, what else do you need to do? But it's a very conscious practice of trying to be like, no, but this is the drawer that's open, meaning that's your focus right now. All that other stuff, super important. It will not go away. It's there for you to open when it's time to open it. So it's a combination of that as a practice, and then just being disciplined enough to open the other drawers when it's time, not to be like, I see the drawer, I'm just going to keep it closed.
Just going to leave it right there. Yeah, I just feel like you always have like this, like glow about you. Like you're always like just I know people probably won't believe this, but Miss Sheri's like always happy. Like Miss Sheri, like there's once in a blue moon when you're like, I've had it, man. Like
I know those days. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Sheri's like, I need to talk, I need to unload. But other than that,
Yeah.
like every day you come in, you show up to work, you're like ready to see your kiddos, you're ready to do this, you're ready on dad duty, you're ready to go, like, oh, and then you still make time to have like date nights and stuff. I'm like, Sheri, how do you even do like, I think I let work, I mean, of course I'm young, so I'm gonna let work affect me, I'm gonna let other, but how do you not let stuff like get to you so easy? Like I feel like, remember the other day, like I came to work and I was fucking out of it, and I was just like done, and I was just like, can't do this anymore. And then I was just like, how are you just able to keep your composure about a lot of things without like breaking throughout the days and stuff like that? Because I know a lot of people like go through breaking down throughout the days and they're having a hard day and they want to go to work and they want to do this and want to do that, and it's just like, how are you able to like control of your
awesome question. And you know, please remember, I know you don't like the age thing, but this is where the age thing is actually super relevant. Like I have always tried to be a happy, positive person, but like don't for a minute think that even now at the age that I'm at, like I have days where that's not easy. And so there are certain things that I might need to do within that day to manage that better so that I'm not having breakdowns, or I do allow myself some kind of a small like regroup instead of a breakdown. Like we're just going to regroup so we can be grounded again. But like when I was your age, like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know half of what you know about self-help and being reflective. And like, honestly, I didn't. So I think I want to say that to you so that you realize for you, like, you're kind of kicking it. But on top of that, you continue to develop, you continue to evolve, right? So for me at this age in my life, I mean, I have a very specific morning routine that I do that I think really helps set the tone for the rest of the day. But I also, throughout the day, you have to build in some self-care things. So like life is so busy, like your day is so busy, my day is so busy. But it doesn't matter how busy you are, you have to build in some self-care stuff. So what does that look like? Well, it doesn't have to be that we're going for 3 days to the Airbnb or we're going for a mani-pedi or whatever somebody's thing is. It's about, I feel that it's like really important at this moment to get up and go take 5 minutes to go do some deep breathing or to just close my eyes and visualize, to do whatever I have to do. So for me, that's what I do. I've got to constantly be noticing, like, what am I feeling in my body? And if I feel like it's starting to ramp up, I don't want to wait until I get to that point of no return, like that explosion of emotions. And then like, I'm done. Like, I can't do anything else right now. I'm too tired. I'm not good for my clients. I'm not good for my dad. I'm not good for my husband. I do the best that I can, and I'm not great at it all the time. I'm really not. To just make sure I tune into myself and have little practices throughout the day that are going to help change my state of mind.
Okay. Does
that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sometimes it's just a playlist that I have where I'll be like, you need to jam out to this energy play. Literally, I have one that's called Energy. If I'm feeling kind of toxic, or I had a difficult session, or my dad was a particularly more snarky on a given day, you know, or I was mad at my husband for something, like, I mean, you've got to have things in play to go to, but things that you're going to be able to fit into your busy day. So we can't just take an hour, 2 hours, a half a day sometimes. But man, sometimes a 3.5-minute song is enough to shift whatever's going on in my nervous system that's creating all the junk.
Yeah.
That's what I try to do.
And what's one thing that, like, in your 20s that, like, you kind of, like, wish you would have known at the age that you are now?
Oh, wow. Oh, so many things. So I wish that I knew that I had so much more control than I realized I did. Like, I think I spent a lot of my 20s kind of like, it was like two-sided. It was like blame everyone else or everything else in the world for anything that wasn't okay, instead of reflecting and being like, well, what are you doing that's making it like this? So just knowing, like, I had so much more control than I realized, therefore I didn't utilize it.
Okay.
And then also just this feeling of you don't know everything. Because in my 20s, I think I was like, I know everything. Like, I know everything. That person is this and whatever. And I don't want to listen to my parents. And so just knowing, like, you don't know everything. There's always something to learn. And you don't have to compete with people either. I think that was another big thing. I think I felt I was a big, like, you know, I think I attached like achieving with self-worth in my 20s. So I wish I knew that achieving was not as important as like love and connection with people. I really wish I knew that too. You're really making me think right now. I love this. But yeah, because that's a big one, because achieving is wonderful. Like, you want to feel successful. Like, you come to work every day and you have a very strong work ethic. And I love that about you. There's more to life than that. And I think sometimes in our 20s, we're trying so hard to almost be seen and validated, and we try to do it through our work. Yeah. Maybe not with the balance that we need. I know that was me.
Yeah.
So,
No. You definitely see what I be doing here, and I be like very like hard about my job. I really want to be like perfect about everything. Like, I'm very like, and then I guess like there's like this just facade of like you have to make it in your 20s kind of deal now. I feel like now on social media, like everybody's an influencer, or they're doing this, or at the age of 21 they have
crap.
this. Yeah,
it's
like,
all crap.
It's like I just feel like it's just so like it's trying to drive like young adults to like you have to work like 24 hours a day. You have to do this. You have to do that. Like, you can't like actually like you can't fuck up. Like, if you fuck up, you're bad. Like, you're out of the game. Like, you can't do anything. Like, if you mess up, like, it's not okay. But like when I realized like other people out in the world, like, that's not real life. Like, you walk around the street and you like, every time I walk around Safety Harbor, every time I'm doing something, like, I notice that there's people everywhere that live a totally different life than everybody else. Everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different life. Everybody's going through a different path. So I feel like having that hardship of being 20, and like people are like, well, by the age of 21 I've made this much money, or by the age of, well, my story is kind of different from yours. So like, I feel like I put all that hardness on me that I want to be accomplished by the age of a certain age. So like I don't have to worry about anything else. Like, I feel like I like really hard and stuck on that I need to be perfect, that I need to do all this stuff. So I feel like there's other young adults out there that kind of feel like that too. That,
like, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, when you go on like TikTok, if you go on social media or anything like that, like I don't know if children talk about it here about social media or anything like that, but a lot of kids, when they do go on social media, you have famous people trying to do giveaways, do this, do that, or trying to have like this mindset of like, well, I started here and you can do this too, only if you do A, B, Z, and D, and you do all this other stuff. It's just like, why put that like facade into young adults' heads that like we have to make it by a certain age? And I feel like that's why a lot of young adults are like depressed and have really bad anxiety, because it's they're trying to become like this image of like being this like entrepreneur at such a young age, doing all this stuff. And it's just like, let's be realistic about things. And like,
absolutely. And that's actually the problem, is that those very same 20-somethings consciously know, their thinking brain is like, that is not realistic. You just said it. Yet they still keep trying to attain the goal that they've already determined is unrealistic. So sometimes you have to stop and then say, but wait, why am I doing this? Is it a comparison thing? Is it my belief system? Do I truly believe that that's true? If I'm not successful in my 20s, then that's it. I will never be successful. I'm 52 years old. I just finished another master's degree 2 years ago. And I say that mostly because girl started in her 50s and on another master's degree to take a completely different path. I don't even think it's all that different, but like, I was in this education world, now I'm in the mental health and the coaching world. So my point in saying that is like, there's a 30-year gap in there where I made all kinds of decisions and I was successful in my way based on whatever the criteria was at that time. But the criteria changes as you get older. Yeah, it does. So you can change and do what you want and be successful anytime. The problem is, what is the belief system? So if the belief is, oh, the things that these 20-somethings are saying on social media is true, that's the goal, I have to go for that. If that's the belief system, there is a little bit of a disconnect between that belief system and then actual life conditions. And if you don't have the things like aligning there, then you're going to feel pretty hopeless and helpless, and you're going to be depressed. You're going to be like, why should I even try? My life is over. I'm a complete failure, right? Like, and I think I'm exaggerating, but so it starts here.
I mean, the negativity is right. I mean, you feel like you're just like not enough. You feel like, oh, I can't be in the same lane. I can't be in the same group as these people because I don't fit in, or this and that. And it's just like, I noticed definitely like even my friends or even like people I see on social media, like being the age, I feel like it's all a comparison. Like everybody nowadays is just trying to compare to everybody who has the best this, who has the best that, who has more of this, who has now that it's the holidays, who has more gifts than this, who can have a better Christmas, who can, even with families too. I feel like when families show up, it's like a lot of I mean, I don't know if this is for a lot of families, but a lot of other families, they're very like, well, this person has this, or my cousins have this, or my aunt is a big rich lady, and my uncle's this, and it's just like, why can't we just all be like one, like just nobody needs to compare to each other. Like, why can't we just all just be regular humans without the whole titles and the money and the all the other extraness that comes with being a human? Like, why can't we just be humans and like have a simple conversation about what life is and like what's going on and this and that? I feel like everybody wants to talk about how much money do you make? Oh, what position are you? Oh, what do you do? What was your last thing? What was this? What was that? And just like, why are we keeping this, like, why are we going to keep having kids to keep putting them in positions to basically compete with other kids? That's kind of how I feel like it is. Like, everybody keeps doing this and showing, well, you have to be better than William, or you have to be better than Jessica at this. You have to make sure you get all A's. You have to do this. You have to, like, it's just like, and I feel like over the years, it's been more competitive for children to be children. Like, it's not, kids are not kids anymore. Like, kids are on social media. Kids have cell phones. Kids don't go outside to play anymore. Like, it's just like me realizing that now is just like, shit, when I was like 10, I used to like have a bike. I had like 3 bikes, and I went outside and I rode it. My mom used to be like, be back when the sun goes down, like make sure you have all your keys and this and that. And like, I didn't even have a cell phone. Like, that's like the stuff that I'm realizing as a kid, that like that's what kids are. But now when I see kids are going through depression, anxiety, school shootings are happening. I mean, the stabbing at Countryside that just happened recently, like that affects children. Like, and people don't realize like their environment, stuff that happens around them, like it affects the child growing up. And I feel like a lot of people just don't grasp that information completely.
No. And I think the things that you just hit upon are so significant, and it's so true. It's this combination of social media creates more comparison. I think we've all always done that anyway. I think social media deepens that because we're so much more aware, and it's very much like in your face as to other people's like stuff, right? In comparisons. And then what do? We jump in because we want to feel like we're enough. We want to feel like we belong. And so we want to compete. So when you say, why do we do that? Or, you know, that's why. It's this feeling of, I will feel enough if I feel like I am meeting that same standard that that person is. So what we have to do is we have to change either that expectation or the standard that we have. And then I think that, you know, like you were talking about with parents, and like you have to be better than, you know, little Johnny, and you have to get all A's, and you're basically telling your kids, like the 20-somethings believe, like you believe I have to be successful by this age. And so kids are like, I have to get all A's or I won't be enough and my parents won't love me. In a way, that's kind of the message that they internalize.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I felt like as a child too. Like if I didn't get that enough, or if even with siblings, like parents try to compare siblings. I noticed a lot too. Like parents try to be like, well, so-and-so did this and she didn't do this correctly, or so-and-so did that. So it's just like, even with patients, a
lot of guilt and shame.
Yeah, but even with patients that we see too, I noticed that too. Like I'm like, wow, I love studying patients when they're in the waiting room. Like it just makes me like sit, because I love body language. You know, I've always told you that I love people's body language and how they react to certain things, because it's just like, I feel like words don't tell you enough, but people's actions and their body language tells you everything that you need to know about a person. So even in a conversation, like certain people are sitting certain ways, and like you'd be like, oh, okay, they're not comfortable with me. Like if somebody's sitting like a certain way, like their like hands are closed, or like looking out the door a lot, or they're doing that, that means they're like, they don't want to sit there anymore. They want to like go and do their own thing or anything like that. Like I noticed that like with parents too, they'll like have their back towards their kid, and their kid's like, oh, my parent doesn't want to like my parent wants me to go somewhere else, or they want me to do something. Like, they feel that they don't have to tell them, but like if their back is turned to them, they definitely feel that like, oh, my parent doesn't want anything to do with me, so I'll go sit on the other side of the couch, or I'll go do this, or I'll go be by myself. And I definitely noticed that with a lot of parents and children's interactions, that like parents are quick to just, here's a cell phone, go, like, do your own thing, like,
right,
whatever. When parents drop their kids off here,
yeah,
and you're like, mom didn't come in with you today, and you're like, no, and you're like, okay. And then this is like a daycare situation, and it's just like, why do parents feel that kind of putting comparison with siblings, or like kind of putting their child in that position, makes it like a better parent? Do parents see that as like a better parent? Like, if I boost my kid up in this way, like, you have to get all A's, like, I would love you more. Is that like something more negative towards the child? If that makes sense.
It does. And I don't know I think the reason for parents doing that might vary depending on the parent and some of their background. I think some of it is like, if you don't have all A's, that's a reflection on me.
Okay.
I don't want to feel that reflection on me. So you must perform so that I am worthy enough, right? So that's even more pressure.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think some of it too is a parent having a belief that in order for my child to have a good life and be successful, that it needs to look like good grades, a good job, when maybe is that really what a good life is? I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to judge anybody's decision, but I think people have a rule or a meaning that they put on something, and then that's why they want those things from their kids. And I think too that we're very wrapped up in like achieving and what looks good, right? As opposed to relationship and deeper connection with like our kids.
Okay.
And I think that's part of what maybe is not something that sometimes parents see, that could really probably definitely benefit the kids, but I think benefit the parent as well.
And then, so we talked at one point about when I was going through things a couple months ago, and we would like sit down and you would take the time to speak to me about certain things. When I was having a lot of panic attacks and I was going through all that, and you taught me that method of like the breathing and relaxing and trying to like get all in one. Like, how were you able to kind of like teach people how to control that mindset of like not getting into such like a horrible like panic attack, or like trying to be so negative and down on themselves? Like, how were you able to like kind of give people that advice to like, because that really helped me after you gave me that. I started doing that, like, oh my God. I was just like, that definitely like it just brings you back to like a calm state. Like, it's not like, my brain always, when you're having, your brain just feels like it's going like at like 1,000 miles an hour.
So I think the biggest thing is I try to really listen. I don't think there's a one size fits all. I think you have to listen to what the other, person's situation is and try to hear it for what it is for them.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense. So instead of me being like, I'm going to put my lens on it and, I'm going to pre-decide like what that person needs and what they're feeling. Like, no, I'm going to listen. And then with that detail, I'm going to try to chisel it all down to be like, okay, based on the information that Kathy shared, this is what I believe she's feeling or struggling with the most, so that I'm able to go like this with some of the other stuff to get really targeted on like, where is her biggest pain in this moment? And then I try to think of what can I offer to her or to anyone else to help them use this tool to help them with that biggest pain that they're having in that moment. So that's really that's kind of like how I do it. And then it's a matter of me going into my toolbox of like, I know what I have for tools to offer people, and then trying to pick the potential right thing for that person, right? And I always say that to people, like, look, I'm going to give you one or two things. I'm not telling you that that's going to be the thing that works for you, because there are certain breathing exercises that if you ask me to do them, it's going to put me into a panic attack because it's so unnatural for my breathing so I don't think you should ever force someone with something, and just be honest with them that there's nothing wrong with you if I give you one or two things to try, and then you come and you say to me, look, Sheri, you know what? I tried what you said and it just didn't work for me. that's good information, because then I'll say, wait, what about it didn't work for you? So then I listen and I try to understand and go, oh my gosh, now I get why that was like a trigger for that person, or why that was a problem. Then I can better go back into my toolbox and try to give them something else. So that's how I try to do it. And I'm not gonna lie, I am my own experiment all the time. You know, I love all this stuff. I love to read about it. I love to do classes. I love to do seminars, blah, 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 all the things. And I never expect somebody to do something that I wouldn't first be trying to do, because I think that's a little hypocritical. So I try to just lead by example too. Like, I'm not going to sit here as like, well, I know all these things. Like, my experience is what helps me know, I think, maybe more than anything.
Yeah, and I feel like talking about your seminars, because I love when you do those. I love when you do those. I know you put me on to Tony Robbins.
Yes.
Tony Robbins. Please tell me about Tony Robbins, or tell the world about Tony Robbins.
Oh my gosh.
Because you have given me that guy, and after that, that was that definitely opened my experience to learning about more like people that influence and do stuff like that in a positive way, like he does. So.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Well, you be careful, because now you might not be able to stop me. But I honestly, and this is my opinion, so if people don't like it, I respect that, because guess what? Tony Robbins is not everybody's cup of tea. He's just not.
Absolutely.
Totally cool. I respect and value that, right? But for me, I'm going to go this is such a throwback. Oh my gosh. So aging myself. 1996. There were still cassette tapes. There wasn't social media. So it was infomercials on TV. So like midnight infomercials, right? Here comes this like kind of weird looking guy, right? His name is Tony Robbins, or Anthony Robbins at that time. And there's this Personal Power set of cassette tapes. And oh my gosh, I must have watched the commercial 2-3 times. But every time he grabs you. There's just something about him that's just so genuine, incredibly real. Like, real meaning like you can be genuine, but like you're a real person too.
Yeah.
So you're not just genuine as to who you are. You're just this real person. Like, you're so smart, you have so much money, but you would treat people the same regardless of them being in your circle or not. So by probably the third time, I was like, I have to buy these cassette tapes. They were like $300 at the time. I had no business buying them. Changed my life. I kid you not. So I was younger then, of course. And back then, you know, I would go for a walk, or I'd be playing tennis or basketball, you know, have earphones in, and I would just listen. You know, I mean, I'm talking like Sony Walkman. So bad. I'm trying to play tennis and that. Anyway. And every day, so it was 30 days that you would listen to something. So every day I would listen to something, and then there was a particular, you know, journal that had specific prompts in it. By the time you were done with that 30 days, everything stacked to where you had it narrowed down, where you had like 3 goals that you had for the next year, 3 goals that you have for the next 5 years. You got so much clarity. You were able to like get rid of the stuff that was in the way of knowing more of your true self and interests and desires and kind of who you are. That was the beginning for me.
The beginning of the Tony Robbins
It was just
era.
the beginning, yeah. And so I'd always kind of kept up with some other things he did and those practices. And so then he has this seminar that he does like 4 times a year. It's amazing. Called Unleash the Power Within. And so in 2017, I was just like, I'm doing it. Like, I'm doing it. And it was in West Palm Beach, 4 days, 12 to 15 hour days. Insane.
That's insane.
The first day of the seminar, you walk across fire. Coals of fire. It's called the fire walk.
You walked across fire?
Yes. Yes, if you want to see it, my favorite video, if you or your listeners are interested, just go on YouTube and type in Oprah Winfrey Tony Robbins Fire Walk, something like that.
I will not let you get hurt. The worst can happen. Burn your feet off and die. Come on. Step up on the grass first. Okay. I want you to make your move as strong as you've ever been in your life. Just scream yes. I want you to do it 3 times. Your eyes stay up and you storm across. Yes. Yes. Make your move.
And why I love that video is because Oprah Winfrey, who is friendly with Tony Robbins, she did it one year. And so there's a short video of her doing it. But that's what I did. And it's so funny because I love that I can feel it now so different than even a couple years ago, because I totally minimized what I did. Like, well, yeah, that's what you do. You go, you walk across fire, like, big deal. Like, I totally minimized and just was like, so what? Almost. Like, not so what, but kind of so what? Like, not looking at it for what it was, which is kind of a big deal.
You just walked
across fire, okay? So anyway, so there's that, and then there's 3 other days after that, and he just teaches his principles, which I use all the time, very much based on like cognitive behavior therapy in a way, like neuro-linguistic programming, all these technical things. But here's the overall premise of Tony Robbins and his awesomeness is the state that you are in makes all the difference in how you're going to feel. So if you picture a triangle, you want to picture like, what is the thing that you are focused on, right? So like right now, I'm focused on thinking about Tony Robbins and in telling you and your listeners about this experience. That's my focus.
Okay.
The other side of the triangle is what's the feeling I have. Like, I'm excited. I still feel anxiety from like, I can picture myself stepping up to where you're about to walk across.
Yeah.
But I feel all these really positive, empowered feelings too, right? So the focus that I have causes a feeling that I have. And then that feeling ends up being like this bottom piece, which is what's the behavior that you're going to have, right? So this is so important because if we can think about this triangle all the time, when we're feeling, usually it's on the feeling side that you got to catch yourself. So Tony really teaches you like, you know, what are you feeling? And then try to go back and be like, but what were you focused on? So if I have a negative feeling and I can catch myself and be like, oh man, damn, like I'm like really pissed off right now. I can acknowledge the feeling, then I have to go back and be like, okay, well, what are you focused on? If I'm not aware, like I have to ask myself, like, what am I focused on? And I can guarantee you that I'm gonna be like, I am focused on the fact that person cut me off and blah, blah, blah. So you have to try to go back and change your focus or reframe it. So he teaches you how to do that. You can apply this in any area of your life. Because if I reframe my focus from that, you know, a-hole just like cut me off to, oh my gosh, I hope that person's okay. They might have an emergency right now.
Okay.
My feeling is going to be totally different, and then my behavior is going to be different as well. Okay. So he teaches you that, plus, oh my gosh, so many other things. Anyways, so there's that. So then in like 2018 maybe, I ended up doing a life coaching program that he has through the Robbins Madanes Training Institute with this woman named Chloe Madanes, who's someone who's been in the psychology field literally from like the 60s or 70s.
Oh, wow.
So it was really neat because that's how I became a strategic intervention coach. So it's a life coach, but that has a very specific, like based on Tony Robbins' teachings, way of trying to help people.
Okay.
That's amazing. And then in December of 2000, I've done, okay, sorry, I'm all over the place. I apologize. I have now done Unleash the Power Within 5 times.
Okay.
But so I was in person in 2017. The 4 other times have all been virtual.
Okay.
Because I didn't do anything again until 2020. And that was kind of like COVID was part of the world.
Yeah.
And so Tony Robbins figured out, how do I still serve? He's all about serving people. His background is so difficult, you would never know the things he went through. You would learn all about it if you ever followed him. So the virtual format has been amazing. So it's allowed me to continue to be part of that like intense 4 days, just in a different way. And so you don't do a firewalk, you do a board breaking exercise instead, which is awesome. And so then in 2020, he has so many programs, but he has another program called Date with Destiny. And Date with Destiny is based on the movie on Netflix called I'm Not Your Guru,
Okay,
which I know I got you onto. So I had the amazing pleasure of being able to do Date with Destiny, which is 6 days, and it was virtual.
Okay.
My bucket list is December of 2024. He does it once a year. I'm going in person. Like, that's my goal. It's my bucket list. I'm doing it. I don't care. So it's on now.
It's ready in the books.
Changed life at a whole nother level. Takes UPW, Unleash the Power Within. It's like UPW on like massive steroids. It's like the craziest superhero.
I'm Not Your Guru was.
Yeah.
That was like that whole. I watched it like 6 times.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Like I don't even know how to describe it. You have to watch it.
You have to watch it. Like I can't even describe that thing. Like I can't even like that. After watching that as many times as I did, I was like, yeah, he's definitely like. And then I went on YouTube and watched a couple more of his things. So I was just like, yeah, he definitely teaches you like a different mindset from like he doesn't even like play around like as like a. Like, oh yeah, I'm a motivational speaker, I do this, I'm like standing. No, like he actually gives you what you need to do and like do it in that moment and like don't hesitate about anything. And that's what I really like about Tony Robbins.
And if you ever did, which I know I've encouraged you to like try to get in on a virtual Unleash the Power Within sometime, like he will tell you, and it's so genuine, like this guy doesn't need to work. He's a billionaire, right? It is not about the money for him, it's about service. And he tells you that day one, my goal is to serve you, to over deliver. I am all about service. If you buy a ticket, he takes like, I think for each ticket you buy, he like buys 20 meals for Feeding America. So like he had a goal when he was 18 years old of like, I want to feed 2 people this year. Because he remembered when he was a kid, when he had no money and a really difficult situation, that random person came to the door and wanted to give them Thanksgiving dinner. And I don't want to ruin the whole story, but that it was a really negative experience for him. And that experience caused him to be like, when I'm 18, I really want to do like 2 meals for people. And he doubled it the next year. He is now serving, honestly, I think it's over 1 billion people in the world. Like, it's insane. I hope he does it again in January of 24. He oftentimes offers like a free 4-day challenge that he does online, but he did say last year he might not do it this coming year, so we have to wait and see. But when he does that, people from all over the world tune in at the same time live, and it ends up being like the number ends up being like in the millions. That's the poll. So anyways, you gotta just experience him.
I know, I have to. That's my goal.
So that's my Tony Robbins. I could go on and on, but you don't have time. your listeners are probably like, girl, enough of the Tony Robbins. I'm just saying, if you need someone, and I love to follow lots of other people too.
Yeah, you put me onto a couple people.
But just like, it's life-changing in my opinion. No one does it better than he does. Robbins. Take what you need, disregard the rest. You don't have to love everything he says and that he embodies, but I'm telling you, it's life-changing. No one does it better.
Tony Robbins is amazing. You put me on to Brene Brown too.
Yes.
And then what was the other lady that you sent me the other day?
Was it Mel Robbins? Was it?
Nah, I love me some Mel Robbins. I love her.
What did I tell you about the other day? I don't remember.
The older lady, I think she passed away.
Oh, Louise Hay. Louise
Hay. Yep, that was me. I listen to her thing every morning. Her affirmations.
Beautiful.
In the morning when I'm walking.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, so you have something called Purple Thoughts, correct?
Yes, I do.
Please give them a background about Purple Thoughts.
Oh, okay. Well, so first of all, very cliche, purple is my favorite color, right?
Oh.
So when I needed to come up with a company name.
Oh my God, I need to blow my nose again.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sheri. Please keep talking.
Okay. So when I needed to come up with a company name, I ended up thinking like, something needs to be really meaningful to me. And I thought, okay, well, I love purple, but what does purple mean? So I kind of looked at the etiology of purple and I was like, oh my gosh, this like totally fits. So I'm not going to bore you with the etiology, but I also believe that thoughts control everything. Like thoughts control how we feel. Thoughts can basically control our life conditions, and we can control our thoughts. So my goal is to help people realize that thoughts are so powerful and how to use them to best serve them, which would be more in a purple thoughts realm, which would be positive thoughts, reframing thoughts, and working on noticing the negative thoughts and figuring out how to better put those in a different space. So that was sort of the inception of Purple Thoughts.
I know. When I saw your website and everything, I'm like, look at you. You definitely confused me for a second because I'm like, wait, I just looked it up the other day. This is not how it looked.
I know. Sorry. I made a few changes because I would say a better part of what I've done has had such a big kid focus, which I still love. I just also love like the women side of thing in the adult side of thing because of the connection and tangents that I see all together. So
And you do public speaking?
I do.
How many have you done?
Yes. It's varied over the years. The most recent one I can think of was at a company in Tampa that I did for a yearly function that they had to try to come in and talk with them about, we all have challenges in life, but we have choices as to how we manage them to sort of help them get started with their year. I've done a lot of talking before in schools. That seems to be a space because people want to talk about parenting. Even from a teacher perspective, like ways to best support teachers because things are hard. A lot of behavior focus. And when I say behavior, I don't mean just for kids, but for adults too. Okay. Understanding their behavior. Yes.
And then you do career improvement coaching as well. What does that mean?
So a lot of my coaching clients, this is like, I think a little difference between my coaching versus my counseling clients. A lot of my coaching clients are like, hey, you know, I'm thinking about trying to get a new job. I'm going to have an interview. You know, can you help me with that? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I can help you with that. But what is so amazing about that is like, it's all the same general stuff for everyone. So they reach out to me because they want help to get ready for that interview or to feel like I'm making this transition to change careers.
Yeah.
But what it always ends up being is once you chisel down a little bit, it's all about they don't feel like they're good enough.
Yeah.
It's about the feelings that they have. It's about like what you talked about with you, like I take all the blame and responsibility. And so you end up working with so many of the same concepts with people. Yeah.
And then your workshop for women. So you enjoy like just like helping women in that aspect of like, what does that mean? Like,
I like to really focus on the feelings of self-worth when it comes to women. Because what I've really learned in working with kids is that a lot of times in the family unit, which not to generalize because I see men as well, but you know, most women are sort of the spoke of that wheel. And they feel this immense responsibility and they love it, but it's really challenging for them because they don't have the self-worth that makes them feel confident at the level that they deserve to feel confident in with the things that they do with their kids and the decisions that they make. So for me, it's a lot of work with women to help really figure out, like, where are you with your self-worth? And most of the time people are like, oh, my self-worth is pretty good. Like scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best. What are you at? And they'll be like, oh, probably at like a 7, you know, maybe an 8,
maybe 4.
Then we work together a little bit and we just uncover some things that then makes them go, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not a 7 or an 8. Maybe I'm really like a 3 or a 4. And it's like the best information to find because it really helps them work on, but why are you that 3 or 4? We help uncover kind of the why and then things we can do. So it's just a lot of, just think of an umbrella, and I just think of self-worth is the name on the umbrella. And I mean, I can't even imagine all the tangents I could go into that come underneath that umbrella. And then that's going to help, you know, women feel better about themselves, who they are, their identity, but also be the best moms that they can be, which is going to affect their children and their whole family unit. Yeah.
I love that, Miss Sheri.
So.
That's so nice. You do a lot of good in the world, Miss Sheri.
Well, thanks.
You definitely get good karma. You believe in good karma, Miss Sheri?
I do, yes.
You believe that if you do something good in the world that you get good in return?
Yes, I do, but it's interesting when I think of karma, it's more like I've been blessed by having people like Tony Robbins, Brene Brown, Louise Hay. We could go into so many people who I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I found them or that they're a person in this world that gives their message that has helped me. So I kind of feel like I would be doing a disservice to other people and to myself if I didn't also like pay that forward and try to give that message, right? Like I feel like I'm so grateful for how it's impacted me. I want to make sure if there's one person, that's the person that I reach, just one. It's one person
just
to give back.
And for as long as you've been, you know, doing what you've been doing, have there ever been like a moment in your career where you just felt like you weren't doing good enough or like you weren't enough?
Oh my gosh. More times than I want to admit, but I'm an honest person, so I will. Yeah, like, oh, I went through major, like, imposter syndrome.
What is that?
Imposter syndrome is when you're like, oh my gosh, they're gonna find me out. I'm doing this job, but I don't really belong doing. I'm not really good enough to be doing this. Like literally sitting across from someone else who's there to have me serve them. I'd be like, oh, they're gonna find me out. So it's been an interesting journey, and I still battle with that sometimes. Like I think that's just part of growth, constant growth, you know. But yeah, there have been times I'm like, oh, or like no one really wants to hear my message. They've already decided what they want. It's my job to sort of fit, you know, what they want instead of what they need. And there's a huge difference. So I have worked to find a way to do both, because whoever the client is, it's your agenda, it's not mine. Okay. So I do have to be what you want. But I can't just be what you want or you're not going to grow. So I also have to be what you need. And you might not truly know what you need. So that's where I have to do the dance. And I have to be like, okay, Sheri, you've got to make sure that you give this person what they want, but you also need to give them what they need, even if they don't know they need that thing. And they learn it, because then they have aha moments, and it's awesome. It's magical.
It's the best thing ever.
It's what gives me the motivation.
So, Miss Sheri, these are my closeout questions. Okay. Trying to slide this over. Why won't this slide over?
Technology.
I know. Okay. So, I know you read, Miss Sheri. Mm-hmm. What are 3 books you would recommend to my audience, and why?
Ooh. And narrow it down to 3. Okay, so I'm gonna. This is the first one that came to mind, and it is by Louise Hay. Okay. It's called Mirror Work, and for some people, it might feel a little like, oh, that feels a little fluffy, but stick with it. It's an easy once a day for 21 days. If you want to change a habit, remember I talked earlier about patterns, like we all have them. It's the same thing as a habit. It is not going to go away by flipping one switch. There has to be momentum. It has to end up being like the new pattern. Okay. So you have to do it a certain number of times. So her book is structured in that way. So it's 21 days. You read, maybe it's 5 or 6 pages only. Okay. And then there'll be like kind of a lesson in it, some information. And then there'll be some affirmations that go with it. Okay. And then there'll be some actual mirror work, which means you go to the mirror and you talk to the person looking back at you in the mirror. It is so incredibly powerful. Okay. You might cry like a baby, and that's the joy. It's amazing, because I don't think we realize how little we do kind of look deeply like at who we are. So anyways, that one's a really good book.
That sounds like a good one.
Yeah. So another book that I really love is called Boundaries. I'm going to have to get you the author. I'm terrible with I see visuals like book cover pictures. Yeah. I can get you who the author is, but it's called Boundaries. It has like some red and white on the front, and it has like a pencil, and the pencil is going across the line.
I think I know what you're talking about. I just don't know the author.
I don't know the author either. It's really good, but it's about setting better boundaries for yourself. Yeah.
Okay, I probably need.
Yes. And there's another one. Okay, and again, you're making me narrow it down to 3. I could go on and on. So there's a book called, hold on, I'm drawing a blank as to what the title is. It's by Dr. Janice Webb.
Janice Webb.
It's called Running on Empty. Ooh, okay. It is all about childhood emotional neglect. Ooh. Which I was like, I don't really know what that is. I want to read about this. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think that maybe I have some of that. Which a lot of people do. So it teaches you about what childhood emotional neglect is, which oftentimes is a very oh no, this isn't really a thing because I wasn't abused. And people will judge it. Yeah. Great book to read to learn not to judge it and understand how some things can impact you. So I will get you a list of more, but that's the 3 that came to mind.
You could
anything Tony Robbins. Read it. Read it.
Anything Tony Robbins. What are 3 movies you'd recommend to my audience, and why?
Definitely I'm Not Your Guru by Tony Robbins.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I love the movie Mr. Holland's Opus.
Never heard of it.
Okay, Richard Dreyfuss is in it.
Okay.
I connect with it for two reasons. One, it's about a guy who was a really awesome musician back in like the 60s. And he was going to be a musician. He was going to be like this big, huge star, right? He was going to be all the things. Like that was his goal. That was his purpose. And he ended up meeting a woman and falling in love with her. And then they got pregnant. So he was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to be a teacher for a couple of years. And then I'm going to go do all my music. Well, 30 or 40 years later, as an educator teaching music and driver's ed, there's so much of like a mental health, like just relationships, connection, and to see the highs and the lows of that and the decisions that we make and how it impacts people, love of like family, challenges where we almost make choices that we don't want to make. Really good.
I haven't heard of it, so I might have to
check
watch
it out.
myself.
Mr. Holland's Opus. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And you got one more for me?
Oh my gosh, there's just so many. Okay, I love Hamilton. I just saw your book up there. Hamilton. And I think I love it because of the power in it. Like Alexander Hamilton, I knew nothing about him. I never paid attention in history when I was growing up.
Okay.
But just to be someone who he felt so little about himself because of his background. Shame because of his family had no money where they came from. But this intense desire to like, I have to be somebody and I need to make a difference. And I've got to get my message out to help me feel better as a person, but to do good for like all these people. And I love musicals. So like there's a ton of really great music in it. There's humor in it. There's a lot of triumph and struggle and backstabbing and so good. Okay.
Never watched it.
It's so good.
What are 3 other podcasts you would recommend to my audience and why?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a variety of them. So I love Mel Robbins' podcast. You and I have talked about that. Yeah. The reason is that there's always a variety of topics.
Absolutely.
Sometimes she's super edgy, which some people like. Other times she's super like kind of soft and it's different. Yeah. So there are some days where I'm like, ooh, I can't do the edgy today, and that's okay. But I feel like you get a wide variety from her.
I love her workbooks too. She does.
Yeah. I love Jay Shetty. Like, and I don't know if you've heard of Trent Shelton. Heard of Trent Shelton? I haven't listened to his podcast, but I recently became aware of him. Trent Shelton. I'm gonna start listening to some of his podcasts.
Let me know who that is.
Really good. Brendan Burchard, he does a really good podcast. Obviously, anything Tony Robbins is really good. Let's see. Gabby Bernstein is another really good podcast. She's kind of more like the spiritual side, but she like when I say spiritual, I mean more like meditative yoga. Okay. You know what I mean, that kind of thing. But she does a lot of work now with a psychologist who does something called internal family systems, which is more like inside of all of us we have kind of like this internal family systems that affects how we feel, the decisions we make, and things like that.
I never heard of that person either.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to send me those names so I can look them up. What's one question you wish I'd asked you, and how would you have answered?
Maybe a question that would be helpful for your listeners would be, what's one thing that they can do to make a small shift in something that they're not happy with in their life?
And how would you answer that?
So I would answer that by saying, think of it as something small. Don't think of the finish line. Whatever it is, whatever it is, if you can start thinking of it as like this 2 millimeter shift that you can make in something and start to be like, that's enough, because every 2 millimeter shift adds up to being closer to where you want to be. So enough of the all or nothing in your life. Like if I'm not making a certain amount of money by the time I'm 20 something, like I just need to stop. Like I missed my window. Like that's all or nothing. And instead being like, no, if that's my goal, 2 millimeters of something different that I do every day in how I think, in an action that I take.
Okay. I see that.
All those 2 millimeters are what matters, because that leads to mastery. That leads to getting to where you really truly want to go. And then you feel like you took the time to celebrate that and go, wait, I did that 2 millimeter thing. And I'm not looking at it like, yeah, but you're not at the finish line, so it's not really worth it. Because we want to strive, but if all we do is strive for the end goal and never stop and celebrate the 2 millimeter shifts and changes that we make, we're missing half the journey. And we're still feeling bad about ourselves, or we're not feeling enough because we didn't make it to the finish line yet. So kind of shifting, like a 2 millimeter shift can maybe change that ultimate
I love that.
feeling in general.
I'm gonna make some quotes out of this one. This is really good.
Okay.
And then last question, where can listeners find you online?
So if you want to find me online, you can go to www.sheribickford.com, SheriBickford.com. I have a Psychology Today profile if you are interested, if you're in Florida.
And want some therapy.
You want some therapy? Yeah, so therapy-wise, like I can do Florida, but if you want to do something not through insurance that's under the coaching realm, I can do that worldwide. So I have less. But I'm also on Facebook. You can look up Purple Thoughts.
She's everywhere.
I'm everywhere. So yeah, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. All the things.
All the things. Okay. So that is the end of this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. Like and subscribe this video. This will be the last episode that I draw for this season, since it is the end of 2023. We have holidays coming up in the new year. So this would actually be my last episode for season 1. So I appreciate you for being on it. I truly admire you, and you're a very big inspiration to me. So thank you for being on this.
Thank you.
And yeah, so tune in for season 2 next year. I hope everybody has a great holiday and a great new year, and we are done.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.